thank you for your purchase of the Big Game Gator Kit or Crossbow Kit by AMS Bowfishing. Now the kit includes a big game reel, 2 5x9 floats, an extra spool of 25 yards of 450 pound braided spectra line, and of course your big game arrows or bolts. There'll be 3 of those in each kit as well. Now in the past, we suggested using a breakaway bolt or arrow when it comes to bow fishing for big game. However, our preferred big game arrows or bolts are just as strong, simple to set up, easier to shoot, and more user friendly, providing the same end results, a gator in your boat. Now we recommend what we prefer to use, and we've learned that the simplicity and benefits of a standard big game arrow outweigh those of the breakaways when going for big game. So now let's take a look at how to properly rig up your big game arrows or crossbow bolts to your big game system. How this system works, what happens after the shot and you connect on your target, and then how to properly re-rig in the field to get that backup shot into that gator. Now, this system will work the same as with the crossbow bolt. I'm just using a big game arrow right now. So the first thing you'll notice is on the big game arrows, the point is not a breakaway anymore. The point does not come off. The big game points are now permanently pinned on. Okay? Beneath that point, there's no rubber collar anymore. Alright? You don't have to lift that collar up to put that line underneath there. We just made it a lot more simple. We removed that to make the job, like I said, more simple. Now, on the crossbow bolts and the big game arrows, we use the ring system. Do not use the AMS Everglide safety slides that are attached to the line when you get it. You can just cut that off and set it to the side. All of our big game arrows and bolts have the rings on them. Alright? So the first thing we're going to do is we are going to take the line from our big game reel, and we're going to take that line and go between that ring and the arrow. Alright? So just kind of like this here. Alright? Now the next thing you want to do is, I like to take that set screw and take it all the way back here to the ring and the set screw where they meet back here. And then I'm going to pull out line up to my big game point. And then I'm going to go about another 6-7 inches past that. And now we're going to make a large loop and connect that ring with our line. And right there you can see we just attached our line to the ring. Alright? Now what we're going to do is we're going to make a large loop knot with the end of the line here, and we're going to attach that right directly to the big game point. So what you're going to do is you're going to take that line, you're going to double it up 6-7 inches. And I'm going to take that line, I'm going to go around my finger. And I'm going to pull that line back off my finger and create another loop right here. I'm going to take this top loop here and go through the loop that I pulled off my finger. And I'm going to kind of walk that knot down a little bit. It just makes it easier to get over top of that big game point. And right there you can see we've got a nice large loop knot. Alright? Now, on the big game points, we have a hole drilled through the center of the body. That's where we're going to slide that line through there on that loop knot that we just created. It's a little bit easier to do if you take that top of that loop here and you kind of pinch that line together. Just make it as small as you can. And now we're going to take that line and go through that hole on our big game point. Once it comes through, we can go ahead and grab it. And now we're going to open up that loop. Alright, we're going to go over top of the tip, over top of the barbs. And then once you pull that line tight, you can see how nicely that your line is attached right directly to that point. Very important, because if this gator happens to break your arrow, your line is still attached to that point. This point is going to be underneath that gator's hide. And tell you what, once it gets behind there, it's in there. The gator that I shot 2 years ago, I only penetrated that gator, 3 inches. And one shot was behind the shoulder, the other shot was on the opposite side. And when we got that gator in the boat and we were trying to take the points out, we were pulling on those arrows trying to get that out. It wasn't happening. We had to take a knife to get these points back out of that gator's hide. So now our next thing is, you notice here that once I have everything tight to my point, and then where my ring is here is it's kind of like in the middle of my arrow. I want that ring to be back here by that set screw. The reason being is you're going to get a lot better arrow flight because we want this line here to be tailing behind the nock. You can see here it'd be tailing like in the halfway down the arrow shaft here, and you're not going to get as good as arrow flight. So what you can do is you can kind of loosen up this little knot around that you have around your ring, and you can kind of walk that down towards the back and get it down there and then snug it back up. Now you can see I'm going to have a lot better arrow flight with that line tailing behind the nock versus halfway down the arrow. Okay, so we're getting ready for our shot. I'm going to use this here little mini riser with no limbs to kind of show you how you want to have this set up before the shot is taken. So now when you go to draw back, you can see here you're going to get this loop of line. All right. Now this loop of line we like to have all on one side of the float. We don't want to have one side on this side and one on this side. Once again, not as good arrow flight. You want all that line on one side of the float right here. So now you see your target, you shoot, that arrow comes out, it hits that set screw, and the line will go out into the water and hopefully hit your target. Now, when you hit your target, it's going to take off and it's going to start taking line out of your big game reel. A couple big differences here on a big game reel. The line is not tied to the back of the bottle. The line is tied to your big game float. All right? Because you shoot a gator, who's going to win that tug of war match? The alligator is going to win that. So you're going to use a tracking device here as going to be your float. There's a cut on the top of the bottle. All right? We have this rubber collar holding the line in place. We have cuts going through and slotted on the side plates, strippers, and line guides. So now that gator takes off, he's going to take all that line out, and you can see now when he gets to the end of the line, that line's going to come out from underneath that rubber collar, through that cut on the bottle, and then that line is going to come through those slotted side plates here, and then that gator's going to take that float into the water, and that's your tracking device. Now, sometimes that gator might not take all the line out for your float to go into the water. Sometimes I like to take the line all the way out, set the float on the side away from everything. If the gator makes a hard run, that float goes in the water. Now we can track it. The gator that we shot last year only took out about 12 yards of line, and then he went and sat down in about 15 feet of water, and I had to pull him back up off the bottom. So I had to take all my line out, set it to the side. Now you will need to learn how to re-rig for that backup shot. Now it's very important that you know how to do this ahead of time before doing it right then and there in the water. Because things are going to be happening. You've got a gator on. You want to get going after it. You want to be able to re-rig as quickly as possible, so you want to know how that is done ahead of time, not when you're in the boat after you shoot your alligator. All right? So the first thing you're going to want to do is, like I said, in your big game kits, you get 2 floats, 3 arrows, a spool line, and your big game reel. So now with your line, what you can do is you can grab your second float and you can pop it on. All right. Now you can take the end of a line and you can go ahead and tie it right to the float out in the front stem here. Okay. So your line is going to be coming out of your spool of line. You're going to tie that end of the line to your float first. All right. Now what you can do is you can go ahead and pull out a bunch of line here, about 2 feet. And you're going to stick it through the nose of the big game reel or the line guide area. So you kind of like fold it up double. You're going to double it up. All right. And you're going to stick it in the nose. Then you can get it halfway in there, and then you're going to come and grab your trigger here so you can grab that line in there. All right. Now you can go ahead and start cranking it in there. It's going to stop because it's going to get tight here, but this is what the purpose of that cut on your bottle is for now, because you can go ahead and reach in there and grab that line, okay? Now, your line coming from your float up into the reel, you're going to want to grab that, and you're going to want to slide it between these these slots here. All right, so you can grab that. And it's kind of be loose here, but now we do not want this loose. We want this to be tight. All right. Now you can grab the line that you have out of the top of your cut on your bottle here, and one of these lines here will snug that up. Right there you can see I'm pulling it and it's getting tight. All right. I want this to be nice and tight going across my gear cover and then down onto where I have it tied to my float. Now I don't want this big loop of line here, so now I can pull out the other line, which will be eventually you'll be tying that to your arrow. All right. So you can see we can shorten this up. All right. And very important now that this line stays tight. So you want to make sure that you put that little loop. You're going to have a little loop up here about 1.5 inches long, 2 inches long. You're going to want to snug that underneath that rubber collar. All right. Because now it's very important that the line going to the float is away from your other line that you will be cranking back into the bottle. And you want to have this cut, you want to have that back up towards on the center part on the top. You don't want to have it way down here. You want to have it up nice and tight on the top. All right. And now you can go ahead and you can start cranking in your line. And of course, once you get all your line in there, then you will just redo the tying to the ring, tying to the point, and now you can go back after your game. So once you get it figured out on how to tie everything, you should be able to re-rig your big game system and get ready for your backup shot in just over 2 minutes. Now I'm showing you here, of course, with a little bit of line, not the full 25 yards, so I can show you a little more quick how to do this for this video. But another option to think about is, I actually did this 2 years ago on my gator hunt in Florida with Orlando Gator Hunts and Billy Lawson, is they use AMS gear. So of course, we just re-rigged up one of their bows with the big game system, and we had that sitting there ready to rock and roll. And when I shot my gator, it hunkered down in 10 feet of water, and I was pulling that gator and getting it close to the boat. And when he was getting a little close to the boat, my buddy Billy, he just grabbed that bow that was already ready to rock and roll, and we got that gator to the surface. Boom! He put the backup shot into that gator, and the chase was on again. Now, some of that footage is really impressive because that gator is doing some major twisting and rolling right alongside the airboat. And I tell you what, the arrows in there were coming out from underneath that boat like noodles. They were bending, they were flexing. And I tell you what, none of those arrows broke. The AMS gear held up to that. And as you can see in the video here, it's pretty impressive how this gator is rolling and bending those arrows right there. So the AMS gear works. We've tested it. It works awesome with the new style big game arrows and points and bolts, because this gear right here is not only made in the USA, but it's made to get that trophy of a lifetime in the boat and the meat in the freezer. From all of us at AMS Bowfishing, best of luck on your big game bowfishing adventures. For more information, check us out at amsbowfishing.com.